Welcome ESO community to my Carried by Werewolf build update. I released one back in Stonethorn, early Stonethorn DLC, and I haven't released one for Markarth. I did release a Willow's Path and Eternal Vigor build prior to this one, but with this there's a few major changes, CP and race and monster set. Now also added the fact that we do got mythics, so if you don't want to run a monster set, go ahead and use any mythic you like. Now, the big change here is I'm still a sorcerer, but I went from orc to Nord. Granted, the Nord doesn't have any damage passives other than stamina, but Nord is tankier and they build ultimate better than an orc. So when I was on the orc, I was able to put guys down pretty quickly, but if I was focused, I wouldn't survive as effectively. But since I'm a sorcerer, I still got good damage. It might not be as much, but at least I know that I can survive more incoming damage on a Nord, and the fact that I regenerate ultimate. And it's actually pretty good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into the armor sets, the monster sets I prefer, the traits, the enchantments, the champion points, and I will show some gameplay at the end. But anyway, let me go ahead and get into all that right now. Okay, so the first set for the build is Salvation. I know. I use this armor set on practically every build except a few, unless it's my hulking builds or whatever. But this set I just can't get rid of. And I know people talk down on it and say it doesn't do enough damage, stuff like that, but that's totally not true at all. You can see in the majority of my clips I actually run Salvation. I put guys down pretty quickly. Now, the first two items of the set gives you max stamina. Third item gives you stam recovery. The fourth item gives you another max stam piece. And the fifth item, this is why this set's really good, reduces the cost of your werewolf transformation by 33% while in werewolf form. Your weapon damage is increased by 150. Might not seem like a lot, but it actually is once you start putting everything together, your enchantments, stuff like that. So, to be honest with you guys, Salvation isn't really known for its damage. It's known for its utility that it gives. There's been times in Cyrodiil or in Battlegrounds where I don't have werewolf and I just absolutely die. You know, let's say I get to about 170 ult cost. Now if I was running Salvation, I would have been able to get into werewolf form and save my ass. But if I was running another set, I would get bursted down sometimes. So, or I'm forced to run tankier builds, and all in all, I don't like being nothing but a tank. I want to do everything, so that's why being a Nord, I prefer on this build over the Orc. The Orc is really good at bursting people, but I'd rather be a Nord so I can do both. Be tanky and do damage. The trait is Nernhold. Now, the other traits you can run would be Infused or Sharpened. Okay. Sharpened does give you more damage against tankier people, but the lower their resistance gets, the higher your penetration value is, the less damage you will do to them because you start overshadowing their resistances. So try to find that sweet spot with penetration or sharpen traits or whatever to kind of min-max your damage without going overboard or not going too low. Okay. Now, you don't have to run a one-handed shield. What I have here is a dual wield setup where my offhand would be sharpened with a shock enchant. What shock does, it puts minor invulnerability on people, and they will basically take 4% more damage, or damage taken. And I'm also a sorcerer, and you get buffed by the... I don't remember which one it is, but I think it's in this here category. By the Energized passive. Increases your physical and shock damage by 5%. So your shock enchant will be a little stronger. Now, if you don't want to run Sharpen, you can do Infused. And by the way, I'm loaded with salvation pieces and sets, so yeah. You run Infused, so your shock enchant will be higher, but you'll lose a little bit out on the penetration value. Okay, so now dual wield seems to, on the chart, seem to do more damage in certain scenarios, but what you got here with the two-hander variants is something completely different. You have higher weapon damage and a higher enchant value, so your weapon damage can probably be higher on your tooltip and your character sheet, but not always. It's not always going to hit harder than a dual wield setup. It just depends. If you don't want to run dual wield, you can do two-hander here. Now, your offhand here, or not offhand, or the second two-hander you got is Sharpen trait, which is actually stronger than the Nirnhold. But, like I said before, if you overshadow somebody's resistances, Sharpen will become less effective. So, in my opinion, I would stick with Nirnhold for most of your scenarios. Alright. Anyway, that's that. If you don't have Sharpen, run Infused. If you don't have Infused, run Nirnhold. But I pick out of those three traits for weapons. If you don't have it, if you don't have everything golded out, at least gold your weapons out and your enchantments, and then just keep everything else purple. Alright, so the offhand is a Salvation Shield and Penetrable trait. So I'm upping my crit resistance. I understand that people are running Markarth with 25% modifier to damage, but people don't seem to understand is that not everybody runs Markarth, and you still need to have a high crit resistance value. But anyway, just put a Hakijo enchantment here. You don't have to. You can do stamina or mag or health, but I prefer Hakijo to kind of boost all three pulls because Werewolf uses all three resources. Werewolf is very cost heavy. That's why I'm also a sorcerer. You don't have to be a Sorc. You can run this on a Dragon Knight, a Warden, any class, but it is best on sorcerer in my opinion. Okay. Poisons. You can run many different types of poisons as you like. I use double dot poisons, especially when I want to swap out my monster set and put Markarth on, because I believe Markarth will boost your poison damage. I'm not sure though. But run double dots, or you can run a unique poison that immobilizes people or snares them. I like this one because it'll randomly snare them and stuff, or not snare them, but stun them. And it also increases the cost of your victim's magic abilities by 10%. So sometimes they will be sustaining more, or having a hard time sustaining. My bad. Anyway, you can pick any poison you want. Okay. Offhand, the Asylum Greatsword. This is like a blood spawn proc. So basically what you do is you run up to a group of adds below 50% or 25% or something like that, 25%, and hit your Executioner from your two-hander. And it will give you about 12 ultimate based on how much execute bonus damage it dealt. So you just use reverse slash, Executioner, whatever, and it's like a blood spawn proc. So you'll get ultimate pretty quickly there. If you don't have this, you can run a Maelstrom Bow, you can run anything you like here. You can freaking run dual wield Master Axes for all I care. But for me, I prefer the Asylum Greatsword because I want to get into Werewolf fast as possible. Alright, so monster sets. I went with Mighty Chunin because I'm a Nord, and sometimes I'd rather have my resistance buff up at all times. What Mighty Shooting does is that it gives you armor, max health, and basically gives you major resolve at all times, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5,948. Almost basically 6,000 resistances added. And since I'm also a Nord, that would be another additional 3,000 some resistances. Crazy. Especially stacked with the Werewolf resistance and the 10% mitigation passive the pack leader gets. But you want to run Impenetrable and a Tri-Stat Hakijo. Anyway, I want to let y'all know that every single piece should be heavy armor, unless you have exceptions and you want the Undaunted passives, go for it. But everything should be heavy to really be getting your benefits from your resistance and your healing capability from the heavy armor passives. And Werewolf seems to do better in heavy armor in PvP anyway. Making a medium armor build is very difficult, especially a solo one, especially one that wants to do damage and be tanky. So you usually got to pick between the two at that point, or try to find the sweet middle spot between the two. Anyway, if you don't want to run Mighty Shooting, you have Bloodspawn, which is basically a bunch of ultimate. When you have a 6% chance to get a bunch of ultimate, and it gives you a little bit of resistance as well, and stamina recovery. You can run Malakina for more damage. Not recommended though, because it kind of tears up your sustain and it makes you squishy. Ancient Guardian for really good sustain, and Troll King, and it just gives you more health recovery. But really don't need to run it because we have Eternal Vigor. Now, your second set is Eternal Vigor, and it's a must on Werewolf builds. I've tried other set combinations without Vigor, and no. I tell you what, no. There's just something about Vigor that just gives you sustain everywhere. And it gives you a health piece to increase your healing effectiveness as a Werewolf, because your heal is cut off of max HP. But what it does on the 2 items, it gives you mag recovery. 3 items gives you stamina recovery. 4 items gives you health recovery. And 5th item gives you max health. And the best part about it is the other 5th item adds 337 stamina and magic recovery while your health is above 50%. And it's basically a Troll King proc, so adds 1,000 health recovery while your health is 50% or less. So what happens is, when you get below 50%, you get a bunch of health recovery, but your stamina and mag recovery drops, or the bonus drops from that 5th piece there. But like I said, you got a mythic item known as the Torque or whatever, and it would basically can fix that issue. But like I said, sometimes you don't need a mythic item. Sometimes it's better just to run monster sets. But there's so many different varieties you can do this build, or try this build at. Anyway, my shooting monster set, I understand that I should be using this piece here because it's gold, but I have all heavy, and I will gold this out eventually, but you'll be fine. And everything needs to be impenetrable. I still need to change this, but I think I'm fine with that. It boosted my max resistance a little bit. Now, if you don't want to run impenetrable, go ahead and run Divines, Reinforce, Neuron Hold, whatever trait that you find that will help you out, but I want to keep my crit resistance at really good rating, or good scaling, because you never know what you run into. Gank blades, bombers especially, damn, they crit. When they hit you, they can kill you pretty quickly too if you ain't ready. But like I said, try to stat everything out. On jewelry, everything needs to be triune, increased physical harm. Glyphs. You can do, like I said, you can also mix it up, run infused. You can run bloodthirsty. I mean, just mix it up how you want. You can run robust, whatever. But I prefer triune on this build. Now for the Markarth is something that you want to run if you want to do more damage. But the Ring of the Pelt Order is not bad either. I've tried that out before. Really decent if you have Claws of Life and you're hitting a bunch of people in front of you. You can stay alive for a while. But with this build, we're using Anguish because you need to file. Even if it's weaker than before, it's still needed. Alright, so that is basically it on the armor sets and combinations that you could try with enchantments. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over the human skills, and oh well, before I do that, I forgot, I need to go ahead and show you what foods and potions I prefer. The most obvious food to use is Bewitched Sugar Skulls. It gives you Magicka, health, and stamina, and then it gives you a really big health recovery bonus, 462. If you don't have this, just run regular purple tri-stat food. Maybe switch out a certain Mundus Stone for the steed, but right now I have the warrior for more damage. So yeah, if you want to try something unique, you could try Pack Looter's Bone Broth, or you could try Dubious. I mean, just mix it up. You could run Arteon Takeaway Broth as well. There's so many different foods and drink combos you can try out. Potions, not always prefer tri-stats. It's just because you need to sustain your werewolf in all three pools, so tri-stats is probably your best option. You need attack pots and immovable pots. I like using immovability against like people who snare and use a lot of stuns, so immovabilities are pretty good. And you need to be able to, since this also has an attack pot version of it as well, you need to be able to catch Nightblade sometimes, so just pop a detect pot and you can kill them pretty effectively, especially when there's a gang of them chasing you, trying to gank you and stuff. Anyway, and you can run Essence of Invisibility. You just pop this and you can basically escape a bunch of people, so you really need it. And then you have Essence of Speed. You use this to kind of like chase people, especially if they're running away, or you can use this to also escape as well. It's up to you. But if you had to pick just one potion, I would go with tri-stats. Alright, so that's basically it on the foods. I went over the poisons, poisons too, and the potions. So what I'm going to do now, like I said prior, is I'm going to show you the human Sorc abilities. So the first one is Hurricane. It gives you resistance, gives you an AoE damage, AoE thing. So you manifest yourself as pure air, nearby enemies with wind dealing 7 amount of damage. The wind grows in damage and size, increasing up to 150% more damage and up to 9 meters in size. While in this form, you gain major, resolve, and minor expedition, so you'll move a little bit faster by 15%, and you have almost 6,000 resistances. I understand that I am running Chuden, but sometimes you get debuffed, so you just reapply yourself with the Hurricane. Anyway, the second ability is Critical Surge. You need this since I'm not running a Markarth. You can use this, so what you do is you buff yourself, and while active, dealing critical damage heals you for 3,000 something health, and this effect can occur once every 1 second. So you just use that to kind of sustain with heavy attacks until you get werewolf form, stuff like that. Then Dark Deal. You need Dark Deal. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't. You really need it on the Sorc, Stam Sorc especially, because you don't have many powerful heals other than Vigor in this. So then you just kind of like synergize that with Vigor and whatever other heals you can have on your bar. So now we got Heroic Slash. You kind of need this for the one-handed shield setup, especially with the Nord ult regeneration and salvation to reduce your werewolf cost and the Sorc passives as well. So you put minor main, reducing their damage by 5% for 12 seconds, and you gain minor heroism, granting you 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 12 seconds. So you kind of need that. And then Vigor, which is a basic stam heal. And then Pack Leader. It's the stronger morph out of the two in PvP, so I recommend that. On the back bar, so we're running Dizzy Swing. This is just a normal spammable you have for two-hander. turn evil, so you kind of throw this on the ground. It can fear targets, and it will give you recoveries, and it will reduce your damage taken by a little bit. Ball of lightning. Use this to kind of escape people that use projectiles or well, I really seen how this. Okay, the way I see how this to be effective sometimes is imagine someone with a Zon proc, so you just hit ball of lightning to escape it, to get out of range before it nukes you. Or you can use this against sorcerers, mag blades, stuff like that. It's pretty effective. Or you can use this to escape Zergs, which is not bad. And then we have Executioner, because we're running Asylum, and you kind of need this to get ultimate, and you can also execute people if they're squishy enough. But this is a werewolf build. It's going to be a lot harder to kill somebody with this setup in human form, but that's not what it's intended to do. It's meant to get into werewolf fast as possible. Now we got 4 momentum. You can run both of the morphs, but I hate being snared, especially on a sorcerer with little bit of defense compared to other classes. So yeah, and it also gives you major brutality, so it will increase your damage, and it gives you stam recovery, and it makes you immune to snares for a certain amount of time. The other one just heals you, but I just hate being snared, so I recommend that. And then just slot whatever back bar ultimate you want. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the werewolf form itself. First things first, we're just going to buff ourselves. Alright. So, werewolf abilities. Brutal Pounce. You need this because it gives you a lot of weapon damage. It puts an additional bleed, and it can stack up to 600 weapon damage if you pounce on one guy 6 times, right? 6 times. Or you pounce on 6 targets at once, and you can get up to 600 weapon damage, plus its additional bleed, or a dot, and it also can execute people at lower health, which I've seen people running away, and they died from it. Hercine's Fortitude. It gives you major brutality at all times, and it gives you recoveries, and it's a stronger heal out of the two. Hercine's Rage is PvE, my opinion, and then if you're at full health, you can restore 3,000 stamina. And this is the recommended heal for PvP. And the heal is pretty cheap because we're also a sorcerer. Regular werewolves that don't use sorcerer passives are usually looking at 5,700 per cost of heal, which kind of sucks, but yeah. So out of the 2 morphs, Hercine's Rage is for PvE, and Fortitude all the way to PvP. You don't want to nerf your healing, and you don't want to make yourself take more damage. But I think with the pack leader mitigation, you could get away with using Rage, but Rage would be more effective if you could get the 10% on all times from Major Berserk, which got nerfed from 25% to 10% on the damage done, but all in all, not worth it. Deafening Roar. What this does, it basically lowers your enemy's resistance, fears them, or slash CC. It also gives you major savagery. And it also puts minor maim on them, so they also will do less damage to you. And then you get major savagery to increase your critical chance and crit damage. And then you have Howl of Agony. This is a spammable attack. You can run Howl of Despair if you want. So, and for the fear, there's another morph you can run. It's Ferocious Roar, and basically what that one does, it makes your heavy attacks faster. So you can actually get off some really good Howl of Agony heavy attack combos. So fear heavy howl combos, which is you fear the target, you wind up a heavy attack, but since Ferocious is faster and it procs up of fear, you can basically get it off quicker, but you will do less damage because you are losing the major breach debuff on the target. But anyway, Howl of Agony is your bread and butter. It's a spammable. You can also use Despair, which isn't that bad. You get 25% damage with Howl of Agony when you fear the target. I think it's bugged, so it's only when you fear them. And then the other one, you get 10% more damage when they're facing you, but you also grant people synergy. So, but this build's more for solo. You could run it in a group. You could have a group of werewolves run it, which would be pretty strong. But this build is intended to be a solo wolf. And salvation is the reason why it's a salvation set. So you run it by yourself, really, because you reduce your ultimate cost. It's better designed for it. But anyway, you get my point. Claws of Anguish. You need this. It puts an additional dot on somebody, disease damage, and another additional disease damage over 10 seconds. Afflicts ambulatory defile, which basically what that does is it reduces somebody's healing by a certain amount of percentage, and it also puts minor defile. This is from the disease status effect, so it's major and minor. The file got nerfed, but the only one that won't get the minor defile from the status effect is only from status effect, not minor defile itself. Just a status effect is Arconian, but doesn't matter. You still need to be able to burst them down as well with defile or regular defile. And pack leader. So Berserker, alright. Berserker, it's only really good in groups. I don't like it by itself right now. It just seems to be not as effective as the pack leader solo. Granted, I could make a nasty dot build and nuke people, but the ultimate transformation doesn't last as long, and it just does bleed and splash attacks. But if you want to run it, go ahead. But I highly recommend don't. But definitely Berserker requires more skill to use than the pack leader. But anyway, they both give you 30% increase in max stamina, because that's where your damage really comes from. You take 10% less damage on the pack leader, and the pack leader procs the pack passive and the werewolf, which basically increases your timer on your werewolf form, which is this passive here. Let me show you guys. So reduce the cost of the remaining werewolf transformation by 20% for each transformed werewolf or direwolf in your group, including yourself, up to a maximum of 80%. But you get the point. So I also forgot to say you could run Claws of Life for an additional heal. It's probably better to use an outnumbered situation, but sometimes you'll have that weird moment where you can't kill somebody because they just heal a little bit too much for your damage, so Defile will make it easier for you to take them out. But back on the pack leader thing, it also gives you minor courage, which increases your weapon damage, which means is that your initial howls and stuff will hit harder than the Berserker. But the Berserker will have an additional dot pressure, which is from the Biotech bleeds, but it can't be reapplied. It has to wait for the 4-second duration to end, which kind of sucks. So all in all, I recommend pack leader. Okay, so since I showed you all that and why this is an updated version of the build, like I said, the reason I use the Nord race is because it gives you max health. Increase your max health by 1,000 and cold resistance by 2,310. And then you gain the immunity to the chilled status effect. Alright, which is not bad. And then you get stamina at 1,500. And when you take damage, you gain 5 ultimate. This is really, really good for building ultimate, especially for this werewolf build. And then you have rugged, which increases your physical and spell resistance by 3,960, which stacked with Chunin, stacked with the werewolf resistance buffs, and the 10% mitigation you get on pack leader, and whatever else, the one-handed shield and stuff, and enchanted points that go along with it. Let me show you the character sheet on buffed. So you have about almost 20,000 magicka, almost 30,000 health, and 4,000 stamina. Solid recoveries unbuffed, almost 4,000 weapon damage unbuffed, and then you have physical and spell resistance, which is over 40k. So which is really good. People are like, well, there's a cap on resistance, but you don't want nobody to nerf your resistance low. They can debuff you, and plus their penetration value, You need to be able to keep your resistance up at all times. And then critical resistance is 3,474. Monostone that I recommend is the Warrior, but if you don't want to, you can try the Steed, the Tower, any monostone that you like. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the champion points, and then I will show some gameplay as well. Alright guys, so this is the champion points. So we're going to do 23 Warlord, 56 Siphoner. This is the green tree, by the way. What Siphoner does is it basically reduces somebody's recoveries, and since I put 56 in there, I'll reduce somebody's recoveries by 12%. And then what Warlord does is makes me break free, basically makes my break free cost less. Alright, so 43 Tenacity to increase my heavy attack with my stamina sustain, 37 Arcanist to bump up my mag recovery, 43 into Mooncalf as well, and then 37 into Healthy to increase my health recovery and stamina recovery with Mooncalf, and health recovery with Healthy, and the mag recovery with Arcanist. Most important passive is Wind Running and Synergizer. And Master Gather, I believe, too, but these two are more important in my opinion. And then you have 31 into Tumbling, which basically allows you to roll dodge more often. So yeah, reduces the cost of roll dodge by 13%. In the blue tree, this is going to be your damage CP. 81 Mastered Arms, 39 Physical Weapon Expert. 39 Physical Weapon Expert increases my light and heavy attacks, just my light and heavy attacks in werewolf form. And then 81 Master Arms increase my initial damage done by 24%. The most important passive is Tactician, so when you roll dodge an off-balance enemy and you come back and heavy attack them, you can stun them as well. Butcher is the second most important passive, so when someone gets low enough, your light and heavy attacks will do more damage. 75 Mighty to increase your damage done with physical, poison, and disease damage by 14%. Piercing basically allows me to cut through somebody's resistance, so 75 Piercing. The most important passive is Last Stand, Exploiter, and Perfect Strike. Perfect Strike increases your weapon critical by 3%, and Exploiter will basically, when you set somebody off balance, you could do additional damage by 10%. 10% more. Alright, so for the red CP, which is defense CP, 61 Ironclad basically reduces your damage attacks or damage taken by 21%. 61 in there. 52 into critical resistance to basically bump up my crit value or my crit resistance value, so I will take less damage from crits. 43 Hardy to basically reduce my damage taken from disease, poison, and physical attacks in general. Same thing applied with Elemental Defender for magic and spell damage. 34 Thick Skin to reduce dot damage over time. The most important passive is Unchained, which basically when you use Break Free, the cost of your next stand ability within 5 seconds is reduced by 80%, so an additional howl or roll dodge or whatever. Or ability, so it basically a howl or any attack. So, and then Critical Leech, and then Bulwark because you're using one-handed shield. Spell Absorption's not bad either. So basically when you take Flame, Frost, Shock, Magic, or Oblivion damage, equal to 30% of your max health, you restore 3,000 something Magicka. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So, it's kind of sustained in a way from against, basically, magic builds. And then, 37 to quick recovery to bump up your healing, or your healing received, by 9%. But anyway, guys, that is my champion points, and this is basically the end of the build. Now I will get to gameplay, but I hope you guys enjoy my carry by Werewolf build update. Quotation mark, it's actually going to be called the Mad Wolf. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy.